What is the worst thing you found out about a family member after they died? My grandmother died in 2017 at age 91. After she passed, I went through her address book to let people know. One of the people I called was a man named Bill, whom my grandmother had dated in the 80s when I was a kid. Bill had been a handsome, silver-haired gent who was always well-dressed and drove big convertibles, which I thought was super cool. He was an airline pilot, and in World War II he had flown supply missions over the hump from India into mainland China. For those who don't know, flying over the hump meant crossing the Himalayas, which the plane could just barely do, and when you landed you were running on fumes. It was an incredibly dangerous and difficult mission, and he did it literally dozens of times. So yeah, the dude was the epitome of old school cool. He and my grandmother dated for around 10 years. They especially loved to go dancing, and my grandmother had tons of pictures of them at fancy dance clubs, etc., all dressed to the nines. They had a good time together, and even after they stopped dating they stayed in touch as friends. So I called Bill to let him know what happened. Except Bill didn't answer, his son did. It turns out that Bill had also died not long before, well into his 90s, dude was still driving for Meals on Wheels at 90. And here's where it got weird. See, it turns out that Bill had been married that whole time. My grandmother was the other woman. Apparently Bill had left his wife and kids for her. But I didn't know any of this at first, so I just breezily said, "Oh, Bill and my grandmother used to date," and then went on to talk about what a nice guy he was, like a grandfather figure, taking me for rides in the convertible and talking about planes, etc., etc. So basically I was bragging about what a great paternal role model Bill was to his actual son, to whom he had been a shitty father. Ouch. I felt like an asshole, and if I had known I never would have framed it the way I did, or maybe even told him at all. He was understandably a little upset, but I think he was at least glad to know the truth. I sent him some scanned images of his father, I cropped my grandmother out of them, and never heard from him again. I hope he found some closure.